Welcome back to my channel. Let's chat about the books that I read in August. I read 15 books in August. I am back. It's been such a long time since I've read more than like 5 or 6 books, but I did a couple of challenges in August and it led me to read 15 books, which I am so happy about. I read a few cozy mysteries, I read some thrillers, I read some romance. It was a well-rounded month for me as far as genre goes. Starting off with the first book that I read for the month, or that I finished, because I actually started this book a couple months prior to August, and that was Empire of the Damned by J. Kristoff. You guys know I am a huge fan of Empire of the Vampire. Here we get the point of view of another character, but I won't say who just because I don't want to spoil for the first book. At the beginning, I was kind of like iffy on this point of view, and you know what? By the time that I finished, it wasn't my favorite point of view. I wouldn't have chosen to be like, okay, I want to share Gabriel's point of view with so-and-so. No, I want Gabriel's point of view through and through the whole entire time. I would get so happy when we would go back to Gabriel's account of things, because now we're getting accounts from 2 different characters. I like that he added that to the novel because it sort of broke it up and made it a little bit different than the first book. And we're just continuing the story of the Earth having no sun, and as the result of this, vampires have come out to play and take over the world. And I mean, they have empires and kingdoms, and it's just humans trying to beat out the vampires. And we're following the last Silver Saint, and he is part human, part vampire. And to sort of atone for being a vampire through no fault of his, he gives his life to hunting vampires in order to get on God's good side. I love these books so much. I love this one just as much, and I ended up giving this one 5 stars as well, which is kind of weird because the second book usually isn't 5 stars. I believe this is going to be a trilogy. This book was just as fantastic. It made me cry. It made me laugh. Gabriel and his banter is just incredible. The words he says, he just has me laughing all the time. I did a lot of audiobook listening for the month of August, and I read a lot of books with the word summer in the title. I was just trying to get in those last few books for summer. One book that I honestly didn't have my radar on at the beginning of the season was One Novel Summer. I just picked this up from the library as an audiobook because it had summer on the title, and I was like, let's do it. So in this book, we are following Shelby, and she's an author, and she gets to come back to this quaint seaside town that she used to live in to promote her new and upcoming book. And so she's excited because she's going to see her friends, and the bookshop that she is stopping at to do her tour is actually her friend's bookshop, and her friend sort of inherited this bookshop from her parents. Her parents are retired, and she's running this bookstore. She's super happy. She has her friend coming in to do her book tour, and she's expecting like a warm welcome when she gets there. And even though like the friend that owns the bookshop is fine with her, the other friend, it used to be 3 of them, is giving her the cold shoulder, really not talking to her. She comes to find out that the reason why her friend is mad is because she felt betrayed by her, because one of the characters in her books is a lot like her, and she aired out some of her stuff. Shelby is sort of like apologetic. She's like, I didn't mean it like that. You were the inspiration behind the character. And whatever, they make up. She ends up leaving. Also, she has an ex at this in this little town that she's coming back to. She ended up breaking up with him because she wanted more out of life, and she didn't want to be in this little town anymore, and she wanted to like fly away and just become an author like she did and just make it bigger than that little town. So anyways, she ends up leaving. She's trying to write her next book, and her friend calls her, the owner of the shop, and she's like, hey, I need you to do me a favor. And she basically asks her to manage the store for her because she can't. She is pregnant and she has to be in bed rest for the majority of the time. And so she's like caught in the middle of this, and she decides, you know what, I'm gonna do it. I need to write my second book. I need inspiration. I'm gonna go ahead and be there for you. things happen, love happens. We're just following the story of these three people. Love ensues, relationships get mended. It was nice. At the beginning of the novel, I felt kind of like I wasn't interested enough. But when she comes back to the town to manage the bookstore, I feel like the story picks up there, and I really started enjoying it from that point on. It was an unexpected read, and I gave it 4 stars because it was pretty enjoyable for the most part. I picked up The Invisible Hour, or The Invisible Hour by Alice Hoffman, just because my audiobook holds came in from the library, and I was like, you know what, let's just do it. It was a very short book. This is a book that I wish I would have read in the fall time like we are right now. It's not technically fall yet. It'll be in like 5 or 6 days. But Alice Hoffman books, for some reason, they are just better in the fall. But you know what? I don't regret reading it. I recommend you read it in the fall time because there's talks of apples, and it takes place somewhat in the fall time. It's like different timelines, but the talk of apples and stuff, and just like the scenery that Alice Hoffman paints is just fall, period. And then we have this girl with the red hair and like this wheat on the cover, or whatever this is, like whatever. I loved it. When you jump into a book by this author, it's just like you get swept away into this world, into this lusciousness that I just can never get enough of. I am so ready to tackle each of her backlist titles. I've read 4 of her books. Each one of her books have either been 4 or 5 stars. The majority 5 stars. This was no exception. I ended up giving this one 5 stars as well. In this book, we have a cultish community. We have novels by Nathaniel Hawthorne, which I have yet to read one of his books, but I'm kind of like hesitant to go into these really, really old books just because of the language and the way of speaking. I get stumbled sometimes, but this book really, really made me want to read a book by Nathaniel Hawthorne. We have almost like a time traveling element to this, and there's romance. It made me cry like incredibly, and I wish I could sit here and explain what I read, but number one, this book is so short that I honestly recommend going into this blind. If you like Alice Hoffman's books, then you shouldn't even read the synopsis. You should just go in and just read the novel. So I'm not going to speak too much about it. Just know that I loved it. I gave you the key points, and I highly, highly recommend this if you just want a novel to sweep you off your feet and sweep you away into the ether. It is amazing. All of Alice Hoffman's books for me are amazing. Alice Hoffman, can I even speak? I read, of course, Cozy Mysteries because it's probably what I'm reading the most of nowadays. I don't know, my brain is like, no, just no dark, just give me bright and happy. And so Cozy Mysteries, it is. That's what I've been reading mostly. I have read a couple horror novels, and I'm just finishing one up now that is giving me chills. So I've been dabbling around in the genres, with Cozy Mysteries, ooh, we have a love affair going on right now. I read Murder Mystery Book Club, and this is the Florida Keys Bed and Breakfast Cozy Mystery series. I saw Florida Keys. I love Florida Keys. Cozy Mystery. I really enjoyed the cover, and it deals with a book club, so I was like, sign me up. We have our main character. She owns a bed and breakfast. She is just living life, loving life, but what do you know, there is a murder that happens behind her bed and breakfast, and she just so happened to like run into the supposed murderer one night because she hears something outside. She comes out and she runs into somebody that's running away, but she never gets to see who that is, and then they find this person murdered in the back of her bed and breakfast. And sure enough, she is part of a book club. They meet in like restaurants in the Keys. They meet up at different people's houses. Just the setting was so tropical and perfect. I loved our main character. I loved her little sleuthing adventures, and her and the book club get together, and instead of reading the book, they all reunite to solve this murder. And of course, the detective is like,
leave the policing to me. I don't need anybody trying to help me.
But do they listen? Of course not. And they just get together and try to find this murderer. I loved the story. Again, I am just in this like book club, bookish theme kind of reading. As you can tell by The Invisible Hour, that was a book about a book, or a story that was sort of written in a book. and they're really big readers, the mom and the main character. And in this one, obviously as well, it's a book club. So I'm just loving these book themed books. I'm just eating them up. I ended up giving Murder Mystery Book Club, I think that's the name, 4 stars. I tend to give cozy mysteries automatically 4 stars because I mean, there's really not a change other than like sceneries and settings and themes. These cozy mysteries are usually all the same. For me to give it a very low rating, it has to be that the writing was bad, that something didn't make sense. But overall, these books for me are just feel good, fun books. So usually I will give them 4 stars. I've been trying to read a lot of my backlist titles. If I find an audiobook, I go ahead and pick it up. And I need to knock off books off of my physical TBR. And so making my way through the titles that I've had on my shelves for a really long time, I came across Lola on Fire, and I was able to get the audiobook for it. This was a really big surprise. I know that Rio Ewers is an amazing author. This is my first read of his, but I do have a couple of his books on my TBR, specifically Westlake Soul. I've had this one for a few years on my TBR, not this one, but Westlake Soul. And I don't read it because I see a dog on the cover and I hear people always talking about how much it made them cry. I love a book that makes me cry, but when I see animals, I'm like, okay, are we crying because the animal's dying or dies or gets hurt? Like, I don't want to hurt or cry because of an animal. And so I've been sort of like procrastinating and hesitating reading that book. I ended up picking this one up, and I can see what the hype is about with this author. His writing is just phenomenal. This is more of an action book, an action thrillery kind of book. So here we are following our main character. His name is Brody, and at the beginning of the book, he is hard pressed for money. His landlord keeps asking him, hey, you need to pay the rent. He has no money. He's like, he takes care of his little sister. His mom sort of like abandons them, and it's been him and his little sister, and he's promised to take care of his sister. Now his sister, it needs a lot of medical attention. She takes medication, and he's just trying to do the right thing. But again, he's like hard pressed for money. He ends up going into this convenience store one night and he's been casing it for a while because he wants to rob it. He needs the money. He ends up robbing the store one night. He finally builds up the guts, robs the store, gets the money, and as he's running out of the convenience store, he bumps into somebody, and her name is Blair, and he thinks, okay, well, that's the end of it. They get up, he stumbles away, and he runs away. Well, he's like expecting, like waiting for cops. He's like, for sure I got caught. Somebody's called the cops. Somebody saw, like, he's just afraid that the cops are coming after him. But no, the cops don't come after him, but he does get a call from, you guessed it, Blair, and she is sort of blackmailing him, and she's like, hey, I won't turn in this video of you robbing the convenience store, but I need you to do me a favor. But when Brody obviously agrees to help in this favor, shit goes haywire. There is a lot of gunshots, a lot of killing, a lot of blackmailing. This was just like fast-paced, super interesting read. I loved the ending. I loved our main characters. I loved Lola on Fire, which I won't say much about Lola, but we do have a character named Lola Bear in this book, which is just a badass bitch. I just loved everything about this book. I cannot wait to read more from Rio Ewers. He actually sent me a book. He was so thankful and grateful for me sharing this book on my Instagram. He sent me another one of his books, which I am going to read soon. He goes, if you loved Lola, then you will love, I think it's called the Bang Sisters or the Bang Bang Sisters or something like that. He's like, you're gonna absolutely fall in love with that novel. I'm excited to jump into that one. And I ended up giving Lola on Fire 4 stars. I read the second book in the By the Book Mysteries series, On Spine of Death by Tamara Berry. This is a little series that has 3 books. I'm actually in the middle of the 3rd book right now and loving it. I cannot get enough of Winthrop, Washington. I cannot get enough of Tess, Gertrude, Nikki, and the detective. I can't remember his name. I remember the detective in the story that Tess writes. His name is Detective Gonzalez. but he almost has like a twin in Winthrop, Washington, that Tess befriends, the detective of the little town. But basically we're following Tess. She is a thriller and mystery author, and in the first book she ends up going to Washington to a little cabin that her grandfather left her. But this cabin, I feel like I've talked about these books so much that you guys are like rolling your eyes like,
yes, we get it. She inherited this cabin with no electricity and no running water and blah blah blah.
I love these so much though, and it's all that my brain, I want to reread and jump in and reread all of these over and over and over again. But obviously in each one of these there's a little murder, and it just so happens that people are like, murder follows you. There's a murder in this one as well, but in the back of it all we are following a main storyline, or not main storyline, because the main storyline of each book would be the murder that happens, and she gets together with her best friend Nikki and Gertrude, her daughter, and they just solve all these mysteries. But the setting in these books is the forest or the woods in Washington, which is just a place I am like dying to go to. My husband always tells me, if you love Georgia and the trees and the mountains here in Georgia, you would love Washington, you would love just the PNW, and I'm dying to go, and this book is not helping, or this series. But there is a backstory going on in all three books that we're following as well. And so it's just a fun time. I really like the dynamics of all the characters in this novel. Sometimes I get really mad at Gertrude because of how she treats her mom, because obviously she's a teenager, but it's just amazing. And Gertrude is like the one that cooks in the house. She's like a gourmet cooker. So every time she's like cooking something, I want to eat it. And it's just, these books are such a fun time. I gave this one 4 stars. I am very much debating giving all of these books in the series 5 stars, because I give all of them 4 stars. But this series has something special over my heart. So I think I'm going to change all of their ratings to 5 stars. I haven't rated the 3rd book yet because I haven't finished it. But they make me laugh. They make me smile. They get me mad. They have me intrigued. They just make me feel all the emotions. And I will never, ever stop talking about this series. So I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. Then I read the 2nd book in the Deep Dish Mysteries series. This one was Ashes to Ashes, Crust to Crust. In this one we are following our main character, Delilah O'Leary, and she has a dream to open up a pizza shop. She is from Chicago, but she ends up moving to Geneva Bay, Wisconsin, which is like, I believe, a little seaside town. Her and her boyfriend is like rich. She gets together with him. He has a lot of money, and he offers like, hey, let me open this restaurant with you. And she's just feeling so blessed and so just high in life. She agrees. She opens up her little pizza shop. And in this particular book, because we see her opening up her pizza shop in the 1st book, but in this particular book, she has just split up with her boyfriend and sort of cut ties with him, not in a bad way, but obviously with him, with the finances. And so there's like this contest going on within the restaurant of this Geneva Bay, and they're getting together and they're gunning for this prize. She wants to win this prize because it's a cash prize, and it'll help her get her out of the hole, because she's a little bit behind with money and the shop. Now this is the kind of, or restaurant, this is the kind of place that is a very tourist center place, and so she needs to make her money before winter comes, and then she can't make any money. So anyways, one of, I believe, the judge, which is like this famous judge, he is found dead, and so they all come together and they try to find out how he died. This book had me so mad for most of it, because her ex ends up dating like a juice bar owner that's in that same little area, and I was like, wow, like he moved on super quick. And poor Delilah was like, what? Now Delilah is a little bit pudgy. Let's call her pudgy. She loves to eat. And this is why I just love her so much, because she loves to eat. She eats her emotions just like me. And when we're talking about pizza, I mean, I love her because she's a pizza shop owner, but pizza is one of my favorites. So the fact that we have like this pizza shop here, I am just like in awe. She wants to make the traditional deep dish pizza, but her way of standing out in the niche of deep dish pizzas shops is that she makes her pizzas gourmet. Every time she comes up with a pizza, I'm like, oh my gosh, delicious. I just want to eat it. Again, I gave this one 4 stars. It's a cozy mystery. It was a fun time. I love our little helper in this one. It's a cat, and he's like a pudgy little cat as well. And it's funny because throughout the whole thing, her ex and her, they share custody of the cat, even though the cat was originally his, but she's fallen so in love with him that they share custody. So every time that he brings the cat over, he's like telling her that the cat is on a special diet, and she's like, no, what do you mean on a special diet? He needs to enjoy it, and I want to give him little things here and there. And I feel her so much. It's just a fun time. I love following our main character. I don't know if there's a 3rd book in the series. I think there is. Yes, just kidding. There is a 3rd book in the series. My Booksy just got me the 3rd book in the series, and I cannot wait to jump in. But again, 4 stars. It was a great time. If you love food, pizza specifically, and you're into like the restaurant business for whatever reason, I highly recommend this one. I love the restaurant business because I was in the restaurant business for many, many years in my youth, and it's probably one of the funnest jobs that I have ever had. And so that drew me in to this series as well. So I'm gonna stop gushing about it because I love it so much. I read a Tiffany McDaniel book. I love Tiffany McDaniel so much. I read Betty a couple years back and loved that book. So when I saw the audiobook to The Summer That Melted Everything available, it had the title Summer, and I'm like, let's do it. Oh my gosh, Tiffany McDaniel can write like nobody's business. Her writing is so good and so luscious and so lyrical, but not at the same time. You're not going to find yourself in this like very lyrical writing, but it tends itself to that lyrical vibe, that feeling. Tiffany McDaniel just has a way of writing that she's making it to one of my favorite authors, because Betty was 5 stars and this was 5 stars. This takes place in Breathitt, Ohio, and we are following Fielding, and he is the son of a prosecutor. And one day this prosecutor, I forget his name, Autopsy Bliss, he publishes an invitation in the newspaper to the devil. Like, he dares the devil to come to his city. A little bit after that, his son Fielding is walking outside of the courthouse, and he runs into this boy he looks malnutrition. He looks like he's been living in the street, like he's homeless. His clothes are all tattered up, and he goes up to him to talk to him, and he ends up telling him that he is the devil. So the devil came when the prosecutor called upon him, but nobody believes him, especially Fielding. He doesn't believe him, but little things start happening in the town, and people start looking at Sal like, okay, maybe he is who he says he is. But the Bliss family, who have sort of like adopted him because they're trying to find where this kid came from. They think that he's a runaway from the town over, but they can't find anything about him. Nobody's looking for him. And so the Bliss family, the prosecutor and the son, they take him in, and so they take care of him. The mother cooks for him, but Sal is the kid, the 13-year-old kid that shows up in reply to the newspaper for the devil. I'm not gonna say anymore. This was just a fantastic book. I would urge you to go in as blind as you can, because just experiencing everything in this book and everything that goes on through Fielding's eyes, because all of this we're hearing from Fielding and his point of view, and it's sort of like a coming of age story. It's a book about family, it's a book about community, it's a book about being different and people not liking you because you're different. It was just so good. I want to see what else Tiffany McDaniel has written, because I really would love to dive into more of her works. I gave this one 5 stars. I think I already said that. It was so freaking amazing. Another book that I read, because it had summer on the title, and I honestly thought I owned this book, so I was like, man, I'm just ticking off books that are on my shelves. I have never found it on my shelves. I don't know if it's wrapped up in my blind dates with a book that I have not started yet. Oh my goodness. I don't know if it's there, maybe, but I don't know where it is. But I read it anyways because I thought I owned it and because it had summer on the title. This is a romance novel, and it gave me Schitt's Creek vibes. I think that there's a correlation there. I don't know if the author, Tessa Bailey, I believe it is, was inspired by Schitt's Creek. I don't, other way around. I don't know. I had fun with this one. Here we're following Piper. She's like an influencer. She just lives life how she wants. She has fun. She has a sister, and they live with their stepdad, who is like this big executive. They have a lot of money, and obviously their mom. But Piper gets into some trouble at the beginning of the book, and she is sent to this little town where there's a bar that their dad have left them. So their dad is deceased, and this whole entire time the stepdad knows about this little bar but never tells them anything. But sort of like a punishment to Piper, he ends up sending her to this bar to sort of work and live and try to figure things out on her own. And her sister sort of ends up coming with her, not to leave her sister alone. And it's a romance novel. Piper finds love. She finds herself. It's that kind of book. I gave it 3 stars. I had a good time with it, but it wasn't something that I was like wowed like when I read an Emily Henry book. I thought it was okay. I liked the whole storyline, but I don't tend to really love books where we have an influencer or even a spoiled character. Even though she does redeem herself from all of that, I don't tend to like gravitate towards those books. But I did like our main character. I liked the storyline. I did like the romance, but it wasn't anything like wowing to me. That's why I only gave it 3 stars. Next, I read a book that I really was not planning on reading, but working towards my Kindle seasonal challenges, I went ahead and picked it up. Riley Thorne and the Dead Guy Next Door, which is the first book in the Riley Thorne series. I don't know if I'm going to continue on with it. At the beginning of this book, I was kind of like iffy about it, but I ended up liking our main character and the love interest and the storyline. We are following our main character, and I can't remember her name.
Oh, Riley. Wow. Did you guys witness that?
Here we're following our main character, Riley Thorne, and her family are sort of clairvoyants, even though she doesn't really like to claim that part of her life. That part of the storyline was a riot. It was so fun. But anyway, she lives in the house in this mansion where she lives with like a bunch of old people. She rents out a room there, and the neighbor in front of her, across the hall from her, is just like this rude man. He farts on the hallway because they share a bathroom. So like he'll walk out on the hallway with like in his underwear. He'll leave his dirty underwear in the bathroom, so she'll like take it out and like hang it off his door. Just like disgusting. Well, one day this guy shows up, like this rebel kind of looking guy. He shows up and he's looking for Riley's neighbor, but he's not there. But a little bit after this guy comes looking for him, her neighbor turns up dead, and so she's thinking that this guy has something to do with this death. They all band together, the old people, Riley, and this I can't remember our other character's name, the bad boy. They all get together to figure out what is going on and who killed the neighbor. It was a fun time. The setting was really different, which was kind of fun because I'm reading all of these bookish themed books or restaurant books or seaside towns. That's like, I gravitate towards seaside town. So just being in a regular kind of setting in like this building, and it was so boring. Like the setting was so boring, but it caught me eventually. This is one of those though that I think I'm gonna knock it down to a 3 stars. I gave it 4 because initially when I finished it, I really enjoyed it. But now sitting here talking about it, it's almost like a forgettable kind of story. I don't know if I will be jumping into the next book. Maybe one day. I don't have any plans to continuing on with the series, but like I said, maybe one day, who knows what will happen. I read the second book in the Ice Cream Shop mystery series, Mint Chocolate Murder by Mary Allen. This is another series that I feel just as deeply as I do in By the Book mysteries. This one has my heart as well, and here we're not following, but our main character manages an ice cream shop, and this ice cream shop used to belong to her best friend's mother, and she's just helping out her best friend because her mom ends up passing away in book 1, and she ends up managing this place because her best friend really is not interested in running the ice cream shop, but she really wouldn't want to close it down. Here's another one where our main character is Riley, but Riley is like, you know what, I'll do it. There's a change of scenery, and she ends up just staying at the ice cream shop. I absolutely love this storyline. I love the ice cream shop portion of it. They have like a recipe book, and it's called The Spell book, and I find that just it's such a miniature kind of thing or detail in the book, but I love that so much. Again, in each one of these we have a different murder. Here we're following a fall festival, and there's this castle, the Moy Mole Castle, and there's like this event. The fall festival is happening. It's what closes out the summer. A bunch of like the shops and the restaurants get together, and they have like a venue. It's a whole party thing. And there's also going to be an art exhibit, and the photographer is found dead. Riley is our sleuth for this series, and she just goes on like this wild hunt to find the murderer of this photographer. It was just a fun time. Like I said, this series is high up there with the by the book mystery series. I loved it so much. I ended up giving it 4 stars. I also read Her Every Fear. This is another backlist title that has just been sitting on my shelves. Not gonna talk too much about this one. I gave this one 4 stars. It was my first Peter Swanson, and I can see what everybody raves about with this author. I know that his most famous book, or like the best book that he's written, is The Kind Worth Killing. Correct me if I'm wrong. I haven't read that one yet. I don't know. I'm dying to read that one. I don't know why I decided to pick this one up. I think it was for the Buzzwordathon I chose this one for. I can't remember the details of why I picked this one up, but I think it was for Buzzwordathon, and it didn't disappoint. We have a murder, and we have peeping toms, and we have crazy ex-boyfriends, and we have like a creepy building. It was just overall amazing. 4 stars. Then I read That's Not My Name. This was just a very random book that I picked up. I really loved the cover, and I was like, let me give it a try. I believe it's the author's debut novel, and she's coming out with a second book. This one was a wild ride. We're following our main character. She wakes up on the side of the road not remembering how she got there. She's beat up, she's bruised, and again, with no recollection. She doesn't know who she is, how she got there, where she is, or anything. It just so happens that a police officer is passing by. He sees her, and he's like trying to question her, and she's like,
listen, I don't know anything. I'm like just as confused as you.
He ends up picking her up and taking her back to the police station. He was actually closing for the night, but he's there with her. He's trying to talk to her. He's trying to calm her down. While they're there, they get a knock on the door, and it's this man, and he is frantic. He's like looking for his daughter. He doesn't know where she is. And then the police officer is like asking him questions to see if he could give him details, to see if he can put the 2 people together, because he didn't just want to be like, is this her? And he describes her exactly. He gets so happy when he sees her. He's like relieved. They end up going home together. The police officer ends up going with them to the house just to make sure that the stories are straight, because when the girl sees this man, she doesn't recognize him. She's like, I don't know who I am. I don't know who he is. So he very well could be my dad. And he has social security cards. He has pictures. Everything pans out. So he ends up leaving the girl there with him. He's like, I'll come back and check on you. But there's another storyline going on of a girl missing, and her boyfriend is the main suspect, obviously, because he's the last one that saw her alive. But he is swearing up and down that he didn't do anything, that she is missing, that something has happened, that they need to listen because she's just missing and nobody's doing anything other than investigating him, instead of spending their time looking for his girlfriend, Lola. This story went, I mean, there was twists and turns. I loved it so much, and I ended up giving it 4 stars. I highly recommend it if you're looking for like this twisty, double point of view kind of story. If you like that kind of story, then I think you will enjoy it. It gets really dark towards the end, but it was amazing. I read the Tuesday Night Survivors Club. This is another cozy mystery. This is the first book in the Survivors Book Club mystery. This is not one that I don't think I'm gonna be continuing on with the series. I thought it was just fine. It takes place in Arizona. We have a girl that owns a bookstore, and she's a cancer survivor, and she opens up this book club just for cancer survivors. They're all women, and they're all cancer survivors. But a murder happens, and they all decide to put down the book that they're reading for book club, and they all get together and they sleuth to see who the murderer is. It was fun, but the setting wasn't very appealing to me, and the whole cancer survivor aspect of it really didn't call to me either. It's not something that I enjoyed reading about. The whole murder and the whole sleuthing wasn't my favorite. I gave this one 3 stars. I really like the cover to this book though. It really got me. And then the last and final book that I read for the month of August was Girls Like Us. I think I read this one for Buzzwordathon as well. I think I was like kind of behind and I was trying to catch up, and I read like 3 of the Buzzwordathon books in 1 month. And I think this one was for August, which was a word like, I believe, in the title. I hope I'm not wrong. If I am, I'm sure y'all will correct me. But this is by Christina Alger. What I did enjoy about this book is that we follow Latina characters. To be completely honest with you, I don't remember much about this novel, which is kind of weird to me because I could tell you what I read at the beginning of the month, but a book that I just recently finished, I can't tell you anything about. I believe we have our main character. She comes back home because her dad dies. Her dad was the chief of police, if I'm not mistaken, and she comes back to scatter his ashes along with some of his buddies from work, people that she's known since she was little. I think a murder happens while she's there. She's on, I believe she works for the FBI or for some government agency as like some sort of detective, and she's on leave, but she is asked to sort of join the police force to try to figure out these murders of these girls. She's sort of like off the books, like she's not really there helping them, but she's like advising. But she is also dealing with things from her own life, which she is on leave for. It's not just her father's death. I mean, that's part of the main reason, but I think she goes through something at her job that she needs to seek therapy for, and her boss is sort of encouraging her to get therapy and also deal with her father's death or something like that. It wasn't a bad book. It was very well written. It was entertaining, but for some reason I didn't even give it a rating when I finished it. I guess I was feeling kind of like unsure about it, and I still am feeling unsure about it. I don't know what rating to give it, maybe a 3 stars. So that's it, you guys. Those are all the books that I read for the month of August. With 4 5-star ratings, I really can't complain, and with all the cozy mysteries, I really cannot complain. I had such a fun reading month. Let me know what you read for the month of August. What was your favorite read or your least favorite read? Let's chat books in the comment section down below. As usual, all these books will be linked in the description box below. They are affiliate links though, so keep that in mind. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.